I will get started. Beverly Robertson is the interim president CEO of the Greater Memphis Chamber, formerly with the National Civil Rights Museum, and has done a number of other really amazing things for the city. So we're happy to have her up first.
Well, certainly building on the comments before me, I would simply say that neither am I afraid to make history on behalf of women at the Chamber of Commerce. In its 182-year history, I happen to be the first African American and the first female to ever lead the Greater Memphis Chamber. So I plan to lead on your behalf and certainly work with all of you as we advance Memphis as the next IT city in the state of Tennessee. So for those of you who don't know that, I'm telling you right now, we are the IT city. And you'll see very soon why I say that when developers from Nashville start coming to Memphis and developing projects in Memphis, you know something is up. So just wait and see, because the best is truly yet to come. But I want to talk a little bit about women in business, and let me see if I can make this work for me. In Memphis, women indeed do mean business. Women-owned firms are a total of 74,100. So we have 74,100 women-owned firms in Memphis, Tennessee. The interesting, yeah, I know that's worthy of applause. We produce 29,100 jobs and generate revenue to the tune of $6.2 billion. So women are doing things in Memphis. We are the #1 market for growth for women-owned businesses. And just a few statistics might help you put that in perspective. American Express did a study in 2017, and it found that between 2007 and 2016, women businesses increased by a whopping 122%. 122%. And then between 2007 and 2018, we ranked #3 among major U.S. metros. This increase makes Memphis the top market in the country for women-owned business growth. And that is an accomplishment, because we haven't always held that title, but women are on the move in Memphis, Tennessee. Tennessee is also ranked #4 on MagnifyMoney.com's top 10 places for women entrepreneurs. And when you start looking at that list, we're among an impressive list of cities across the country, from San Francisco to Seattle, to Sacramento, to San Jose, and we are right there, #4. So some of you may think that we don't have much to be proud of, but you can see we have a great deal as women entrepreneurs to be proud of the work that you all are doing in this community and what you will do as we move into the future. I could find only this picture, but I'll tell you, more than 60+ women ran for elected office in the last election, and of that 60+, 29 women got elected to office in Memphis, Tennessee. If you look at the partisan races, about 43 women ran countywide and 14 won. When you look at nonpartisan races, 25 ran for office and 15 won. And in the primary and general elections, 20 African American women were elected. So we are electable, and I'm looking forward to the election when we can claim a female mayor of Memphis and Shelby County. You are in the room today. I know you're here today, but I was so proud of the picture that I saw of Congress and the diversity of Congress. When I looked at that sea of white, boy, I might not have been there, but I felt like I was right there with them. I really did. So I was really proud to see how we are moving, not just on the local level, not just on the state level, but on the national level in this country. I want to talk a little bit about the areas of focus for the Greater Memphis Chamber. I've probably been here officially about 2 months, so you might not believe anything I'm saying. But I have very trusty staff members who are here and provide wonderful support. Amy Daniels is certainly one, and I see other members of the team that are here as well. But I talk to the staff about the primary areas of focus for the chamber, and I try to do it in a way that allows them to share their elevator story. So when I say, remember the letters P, E, W. And for those of you who go to church, you know what that is. What is that? Pew. As you sit on the same pew every Sunday, don't you? In the same place. But anyway, pew. We are focused on pew. And I told them, remember, all we do is focus on pew. Public policy, economic development, and workforce development at the chamber. We also have a number of initiatives that are targeted to women. First of all, we provide resources to support small business and MWBE businesses. We are working now to redefine a strategy for women-owned businesses. We had at one time a major program centered around the Women's Business Council, but somehow it got changed to the Memphis Business Council, and now Dottie Summerfield, Dottie, hold your hand up, is helping us. She's helping us rethink our strategy, and we started that process by doing a body of research. So we spoke to over 120 women, and we're currently launching a survey among women to identify the areas of needs. We will allow the research results to inform our actions as we build a plan and we advance the work of the council. At the chamber, there are several things that are really going to be critical. For those of you who have small businesses, and I'm a business owner, Howard and I have had trust marketing and communications for about 27 years. First of all, it's amazing that we've lasted 27 years, especially given the downturns, because when larger businesses catch a cold, we get pneumonia and the flu. And it's hard for us to be able to really survive in trying situations and circumstances. But one of the things we know is that health care is really important. It is expensive, but we need to be able to provide health care, and it needs to be affordable. So we're working on affordable health care insurance for locally owned small businesses and MWBE businesses, because if we can leverage the power of our membership to get reduced rates, it's going to be critical to the life of those businesses and will provide a much needed service to our businesses in the community. Now, the chamber has talked many years about making sure that we support women, MWBE businesses, and LOSB, locally owned small businesses. But we haven't had a person who gets up every morning thinking about how we grow, how we provide investment opportunities, how we build professional development series for women in business. Well, I know budgets are set this year, Amy and Ted, but what I will say, that even so, we're going to find some money and we're going to identify a position and get a person in there that's going to be focused. You're not serious about it unless you have somebody that you can hold accountable for the results of what happens in that particular arena, and that's what we're going to do. That is what we're going to do. I will also share with you that we are working on a major workforce summit that we're going to convene in the fall, which is going to be November, I believe. And what the objective is, just let me give you a little background before I tell you what the objective is. Based on research in the marketplace, we know that there are somewhere between 15,000 and 20,000 jobs that are available for which we don't have skilled and trained talent. We also know that major corporations are taking buses to places like Greenwood, Mississippi, to recruit people that don't spend their money here in this marketplace, but they need to be able to address the needs of that company. So I certainly am not angry with them, but what I want to do is make sure that they no longer have to do that. And the only way we can make sure is for us to create a big, bodacious goal of what we want to achieve and convene all of the players in the respective segments, the education and training segment, the apprenticeship segment, which is a part of that, the youth opportunity segment, which is young people who become disengaged by the time they're in middle school because they're not on the college track and there's no vocational program to put them into. So they end up on the streets, loitering, or in minimum wage jobs. And the third segment is our ex-offenders who made a bad decision early in life, but even though they may have paid their debt, there's an albatross around their neck. So we need to develop plans and plans that allow all of the players in those segments to leverage and scale their work. So if we're going to generate 10,000 skilled, trained people in the workforce, we've got to have a plan for it. And the reason we don't talk to each other is because we want to protect our resources and our revenues. We don't want anybody to find out what we're doing because you may go after my funder. Well, I want to move that out of the way. And I want these folks to tell me how much it's going to cost, and the chamber is going to pursue funding to allow the players in each segment not worry about that, but are able to deliver the kinds of services and results that we need in this marketplace. So that's just a little bit of what we're doing. You can imagine how exciting it's going to be when I get to be at the chamber 6 months. From 2 months to 6 months, boy, you never know what's going to be moving and shaking in Memphis. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk about this, and I will now take my seat.
Gina Sweat is Director of Fire Services for the City of Memphis, first woman Director of Fire Services for the city. Welcome.
Holy smokes, how did I end up? As you met me, I'm kind of calm and, you know, y'all want your fire chief to be like, okay, this is pretty cool, and yeah, the building's on fire, yeah, we're gonna put it out. And now I have to follow Beverly. Wow. The good news is, Coach, you're gonna be looking good when you come up here. So everybody in the crowd, I'm sure, whose mother is your best friend in the crowd? And whose mother has helped you get to where you are today, and whose mother is one of the most important people in your life? And well, I have that same. My mother is my best friend. She was a child when she had me, and she was barely 18 years old. She had me. We kind of grew up together, and I talked to my mom about at least three or four mornings a week on my way to work. So 3 years ago, this interesting thing happened. The mayor called and said, hey, you want to be my fire director? And I said, sure, Mayor. And all of a sudden, people wanted to hear what I had to say. So I'm on my way to work one morning. I'm calling Mom, so what are you doing today, Gina? I'm like, well, I got this speaking thing. And she's kind of, if you have to, Chief Lloyd's here, she knows my mom. She goes, well, why do they want to hear you talk? Now, I want y'all to realize this is my mother, the one who means, if my mother is worried about why do y'all want to hear me talk, then you should really be worried about why you're here to hear me talk. So they told me that I should talk about my career. So if everybody will open up to page 5. Yeah, I'm going to start reading it to you. So a little bit about me. I was born in Memphis. I grew up in a small town just east of here. Moved back to Memphis in 1988, so I consider myself a Memphian. A Memphian. That's right, Memphian. And I came here after college, and I got a business degree in college, and wondered what I was going to do with that. So many people in here probably have degrees, and you wondered what you were going to do when you grew up. So getting a business degree works really well with going into being a firefighter. So I thought that would just be a natural progression to go from this nice business degree in marketing. And but I heard I might have another job. Some over here had a marketing firm, I think, that we were talking. There you go. I'll give you my card. So anyway, it wasn't really a natural progression. So how did I end up in the fire service? So I was an athlete in college. I played basketball. I played at a smaller college. I wasn't quite good enough to play at the University of Memphis, or Memphis State as we called it at that time. But I did, I made really good grades, and I played basketball just well enough to help me get an education. And I went into property management when I first moved into Memphis, and that just really did not suit my personality very well. So a family friend let me know about the fire service, and we're talking about this is about 1990, and I had no idea that women could be firefighters. And probably most people in this room really didn't know when you were a young girl that you had an opportunity to be a firefighter, which was really cool because today I had an opportunity to speak to a group of young ladies from Hutchinson School. They actually got to see a woman as a firefighter, and that can be something that they can be. Now, that's something that's out there in the universe that they have an opportunity to be. And so there's lots of opportunities out there for young women, and they're growing every day. And I will say that I really appreciate the mayor for giving me the opportunity to be a firefighter, to be the firefighter's firefighter, and to lead the fire department. So the fire profession, in case you don't know, is a male-dominated world. There's nationally, females make up about 3% of the fire service. 3%. We have 1,624 firefighters here in the city of Memphis. Probably don't realize how big our department is, but we're somewhere around the 10th or 11th largest fire department in the country because of the size, the geographical spread of our city. And we have, last count I believe we have 48 now, 48, 50, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we're right around that 3%. We're actively trying to recruit. And also would bring your attention, so afterwards, yes, I am the first female fire director. We have a lot of other fantastic women. Two of our highest ranking females on the fire department are here today, Chief Angie Sullivan and Chief Hope Lloyd. So they're even more fabulous than I am, so if you get an opportunity, talk to them after when we go upstairs. But so anyway, I worked my way through the fire department, and I came on, I was a firefighter. I was a line firefighter. I wore the suit, wore the mask, carried the weight, and it was a learning experience. But I learned some lessons along the way as I kind of progressed, and I just kind of share a few of those with you today. Obviously, it wasn't easy, so you can do anything you set your mind to do. And trust me, they gave me a lot of challenges, and I worked my way through it. Sometimes, that opportunity presented itself, and it took a lot of hard work for me to get to where I am today. But my advice, from whether you're starting your career or you're in a leadership position, is when you're starting a career, you gotta learn your job. You gotta be good at your job, and then you gotta figure out what do you contribute to the team. So the first thing you hear when you talk about female firefighters, oh, they're not strong as men, they're not strong enough, you're not big enough. All of us as women, we hear that a lot over our lives, that we're not good enough about something, right? We're either not enough, we're not smart enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not tall enough, we're too short, yada, 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 have curly hair, freckles. All of those things were never enough. But I'm a firm believer that whatever your passion is, whatever you're good at, whatever your skill set it is, whatever team you're on, find your niche in your team, and make sure that you're doing the best that you can to contribute to the team. Because I say, every football team can only have one quarterback, right? So that's what I learned is working with men. I always try to use a lot of sports analogy because they seem to kind of understand that better than for the guys in the room. I'm sorry. But I learned that as I grew in the fire service, and I literally say grew up in the fire service because I feel like I have, that proving yourself every day is something that I had to do as well. I'm sure that's something that every one of you go through. And it's not easy because I may come across sometimes as this confident person that's full of all this self-assurance and everything, but quite honestly, I grew up very insecure, not very confident, and I have to get up every day and sometimes remind myself that I am pretty cool. I am pretty cool. So, what I've learned is, as a child and as I grew up, all of this being different and everything, I've always wanted to be something that I wasn't. And then all of a sudden 3 years ago, being different was kind of cool, and that's brought me here to you today. So, like my mom said, I'm not sure why you would be interested in what I have to say. But I will say this, no matter where you are in your life or in your career, like I said, you have a gift to offer, and you have to realize what that gift is. And even the strong of us, even Beverly, comes across very confident to me, but I bet she has her days, just like I do, that she wonders what she got herself into. And was she really ready to take this on? And I do that as well. And I learned a lot from my male counterparts in the fire service. Men don't think like we do that way. And I'll give you 2 examples. You're laughing already, all right. A man, most of the time, and this is what I tell my firefighter guys when I was in the station, so most of the time they look in the mirror and they see everything right. A woman looks in the mirror and she sees everything wrong. They look at their abilities and they think they've got everything they need. We look at our abilities and we think, I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. I'm not ready. That's the way God made us. I don't understand why, but I have watched it over and over in my career. Like I said, being one of the 3%, I've had a lot of opportunities to study men when you live with them under a 24-hour period. So this is just, a man more than likely will take a job that he's not qualified for, will apply for it, and take that job, and will learn on the fly how to do it, or will get some really smart women around him to help him do the job. But women, we over-prepare. We overanalyze. We are full of self-doubt, and we wonder if we're ready. We don't even apply for the job because we're not confident that we're ready yet. I don't know enough. I haven't prepared enough. I need to just study a little more, and that holds us back. So I encourage all of you, you're ready. If you're looking for that opportunity, you're looking for that next step, you're ready. Don't wait until you just are over the top, believe in yourself. Take that step, reach on out there, and I see lots of wonderful, strong women in the room, and I'll just end with this. I know that one of my Girl Scout board members is here somewhere. Anyway, I belong to the Girl Scouts, and they have a movement, and I wasn't in the Girl Scouts growing up, which is kind of cool that now I'm on the board for the Girl Scouts. And we do a lot of work with the Girl Scouts in Memphis and encouraging young girls to pursue opportunities in emergency services. But they have this movement called the Stand By Her movement. If you haven't heard of it, Google it, because it's really cool. They have, it's the week, I believe it's in October. And basically what it is sometimes women, we can be our own worst enemies and not support each other enough. So it's a movement that encourages us as women, and obviously men, to support women. And women supporting women can really be a powerful movement. So if you haven't looked into the Stand By Her movement, I encourage you to Google that and just think about what you can do to lift up another woman in your life, and especially if they may be having a tough day or a tough time, and give them the confidence they need. So appreciate you having me here today.
That was great. Thank you so much. Our next up is Coach McFerrin. Melissa McFerrin is the women's basketball head coach for the University of Memphis.
There's a little something missing when I walk up, because this is what I always hear. Da 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 da. For the blue and gray, and say, let's go, Tigers, go on to, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. I feel better now, because that's normally what happens. So y'all have to forgive me, but I'm not soft-spoken. I live in a gym. So just forgive. I don't even need this mic, but I'll use it because they say I should. But I appreciate being here today. I don't know how many of you in here know me personally. There's a few people that I know, but I'm 58 years old, and not my entire life have I been able to be in a group like this. It's true, isn't it? Not always in my life, when I've gone to do a speaking engagement, has it been a room full of women, and I absolutely love it. And now more and more, I find that I'm speaking to female student athletes at high schools, or female business groups, or female attorneys, or whatever. But it's just great to be in a room with a group of women that have achieved, and continue to achieve. I'm a lifelong Tiger. I am not from Memphis, though, so my lifelong Tiger time started at the University of Missouri. So, that neighboring state over there. So I was an athlete in college. I went to college to be a journalist. So I don't know if you all know, but Missouri is like the #1 J school in the country. And so I went to college to be a journalist, and I was in school about 4 weeks at the University of Missouri when they told me that I couldn't be a journalist because I was an athlete. And because I was an athlete, obviously, that deadline time that used to happen between like 3 and 5 when papers were going to print. Well, I was in practice during that time, so I couldn't be an athlete. I also couldn't be in a sorority. I couldn't be a journalist. I also couldn't be in a sorority because I was an athlete. And those were the times. That's the way it was at that point in time. So I couldn't be a journalist. I had no idea what I wanted to do because I went to school to be a journalist. And like most people of that time, I was probably going to either be a nurse or a teacher. I didn't want to be a nurse or a teacher, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I got a degree in education and decided I was going to law school. And so I can remember studying for the LSAT, and then I remember getting this phone call from a man that had coached me just as my freshman year in college, and he wanted me to come be a coach. He's like, I put off law school. Who wants to be an attorney? Come be a basketball coach. So I'm like, he goes, come here and get your MBA. I go, okay, MBA is not bad too, so let's go. And then I embarked upon this journey where my career started happening to me. And I think this is it's interesting because I think so many people, this is the case, and I think for that point in time for so many women, that's how it was. Your life kind of happened to you. You made concessions for other people or other things. Now, I made my concession for an education, but it also started happening to me because I was coming along and coaching about the time that there were starting to be some really great role models in women's basketball, and there were starting to be really great opportunities. So that one little job that I took for a year as a GA in Texas turned into a full-time job, 6 years at Central Michigan as an assistant coach, and then 7 years at Ohio State as an assistant coach, where I had the really good fortune to work for one of my mentors, which led to a nice little thing called a national championship game that we didn't quite win. But we got there, and it was fun, and about that time, the WNBA was beginning. So I was so fortunate with this mentor that I worked for that she became the head coach of the New York Liberty. This was year 1 of the WNBA, and just an amazing, amazing time. That led to a coaching stint with the Washington Mystics in the WNBA. It led to leaving the court for a couple years to become the general manager. I wanted to be a head coach in the WNBA, and it seems like I could get a GM job, but I couldn't get a head coaching job. So I left the coaching floor for just a couple years and became aware that I was never going to be a head coach in the WNBA because at that point in time, I was fighting for head coaching jobs of people like Bill Laimbeer. Anybody remember that guy, the dirty guy with the Pistons, played at Notre Dame? Like, who would ever think I'm going to be competing with him for a job? It just didn't make any sense. But that's what it was. So I left the GM job there and decided I was probably done coaching. Was thinking about having a family at that point in time. It seemed like a natural time. And I thought, okay, I'll go into administration. And I found out that being in the WNBA, working with some of the brightest minds in marketing and business, that I got zero credit for that. Zero credit for being in that. So I decided to go back into coaching. And I'm really glad that I did, because it led to places like the University of Minnesota, where I had another opportunity to go to a Final Four and lost to this, damn team called UConn. You've probably heard of them. I said the same thing last week, because we were at UConn last week. But then led to my head coaching opportunities at American University, and then eventually back to Memphis. I had not lived in this part of the country for 30 years. When I came back to interview for the job, I told this story just a moment ago. I'd never been to Memphis. I'd connected in Memphis on an airplane, but I'd never been to Memphis. And so I remember when I interviewed here, the AD at the time said, "Oh yeah, Memphis is a great city." I go, "Good thing, because I don't know if I could live in a small town again." You know, I'd been in New York and DC and Minneapolis and loved it. And so it worked out. And then a year later, I accused that person of lying, because this is the biggest small town I have ever lived in my entire life. But I absolutely love it. I love the city of Memphis. But I got to tell you, I came back here, and I'd been in Texas, Michigan, Ohio, New York, D.C., Minneapolis, back to D.C., and then to Memphis. And I'll tell you what, I could not understand a single word anybody said when I first moved here. And I grew up in southern Missouri. So it was quite a transition. But I've called Memphis my home for 10 years now, and I genuinely, truly love this community, love this city, love this university. And I've told people a million times, I'm either going to die here, get fired here, or retire. So hopefully it's not die anytime soon, but retire or get fired could always happen at any point in time. We know how that works. Our job is interesting. I have people ask me all the time, "What do you do in the off season?" And I've almost gotten to where it's a joke. I go, "Nothing. I just go sit on my patio and lay in the sun and drink margaritas." But in reality, probably 40% of my job is administrative. You know, I do the same thing you all do. I do budgets. I'm managing a team and a staff of all females, and that is by conscious decision that I have a staff of all females. I also have on my staff, I have 2 amazing former head coaches that were fired from their jobs. And so one of the things that I have taken on is, as they do in the business world, I'm not a guy basher, and I don't want to sound like that, but guys do it all the time, right? Guys recycle people back into their businesses all the time. And in coaching, it happens the same way. If somebody gets fired from a coaching job, you know, the next day they have an assistant coaching job. One of their buddies is helping them get back into the business. And so I have taken that on as one of my causes, to bring qualified women back into the business, because in our business, many times you almost get blackballed. There's something wrong with you if you're a women's coach and you got fired. No, most people get fired. That's just how it is. That's what our industry is. But that's one thing that I'm really enjoying. Also, you know, part of that 40% is a lot of fundraising. You know, I work with admissions and housing. I spend a lot of time in marketing and promotions. I spend a lot of time speaking. I spend a lot of time with radio, TV, and that's probably 40% of my job. Probably another 40% is recruiting. Spend a lot of time on the road with young ladies and their families and their coaches, and traveling to watch games, doing home visits, traveling just to be seen, to make sure that when that other coach is seen, that I'm there as well. And then probably about 20% of my time I actually spend coaching, or preparing to coach, or preparing for practice or a game. I jokingly, how many of you in here have children? Okay, you are the best audience right here. How many of them are between the ages of 18 and 22? How many of you remember your children when they were 18 to 22? Ours are always 18 to 22. Always. And just when they turn 23, they leave us and a new batch of 18-year-old comes in. And so all of those issues that you remember, those are things we deal with all the time. And it's interesting because I was in a seminar not very long ago about coaching millennials. And it's true, we take courses for things like that now. We do. We take courses for things like that. And probably the most interesting thing they said to me was, the thing that really stuck was what we did, and we meaning somebody my age, I guess. What I did at 18, they don't do till they're 26. And most recently, I was in another one of these coaching millennial things, and they said to me, your 18-year-olds are more like 12-year-olds emotionally. And I went, oh my gosh, no wonder we're dealing with this kind of stuff, because I don't really understand the mind of a 12-year-old anymore. But it has been the most amazing ride, and I am so blessed for the opportunities that I've had. Even though I wasn't a journalist, I had an opportunity to spend time in a historical organization called the WNBA. Obviously, there are challenges all along the way. I remember one time when I was coming out of the WNBA, I mentioned about getting no credit. I also was in remedial head coaching school, I'll tell you that. I was assistant coach for about 22 years, I think. And now it's like if you're an assistant for 10 years, there's something wrong with you. If you're not a head coach in 10 years, there's something wrong with you. Or so most people think. But I grew up in the business 22 years that I couldn't taking or being involved with 2 programs that went to the Final Four, that I couldn't get the worst head coaching job in the Big Ten. But I'm grateful for that every day, because it led me to the University of Memphis. And this is where I believe my home is. And the one thing that I will say, I love coaching. I love every day of it. But I can't tell you how many times at the grocery store I walk in there, and I do go to the grocery store myself. I wear my little hat and go to the grocery store and have jeans on and things like that. But people in the grocery store will stop me and say, Coach, did you ever think about this? Did you ever think about having so-and-so do this? And I just go, really, are you kidding me? And this is what I've gone to say. I go, what do you do? Oh, I'm in marketing. I go, are you going to let me walk in your office on Monday morning and tell you how to run your marketing firm? Are you really going to let me do that? So I'm not having this. So enjoy your shopping, and I'll see you next time. Thank you all.
I'll have you all get up here. Thank you so much. And we'll do questions and discussion for a while. So if you have questions here, and make sure you keep that microphone close. The mic's on. They're on to you. I feel great as a man right now. Actually, I'm kind of like, all that's true. So there's that. Do we have questions, or I can start? Yeah, right in the back. And do I need to repeat the questions? I'm literally doing what you described about relying on Natalie. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna have to repeat the question because the cameras won't pick them up. But go ahead, please.
Okay. This is a journalism question for both the coach and for Eric.
Okay.
This is a basketball city. The state of Tennessee turns out all-American girls basketball players every year. There is an information gap. The media says we can't cover girls and women's basketball because there's no interest in it.
Wow.
But the reason there is a very small interest in it is because the information is not out there. And I'd like to ask both of you to please comment on that and how you intend to fix it.
So for the cameras, what she asked is, why is the Daily Memphian's women's basketball coverage so great? Good
And I was going to say, don't get me started. Do not get me started.
Please.
I feel that same frustration. I think we do all across the country. I think that there are opportunities, and I'm not criticizing him and what he's doing. Jonah, as I mentioned to him, has been out to our place. I talked with him last week, but I think the industry has changed so much. So first of all, let me walk back to that. When I first came to the University of Memphis, we had our own beat writer. He hopped on the plane with us. He went to every game. We'd have a feature story sometime during the week. We'd have a pregame story. We'd have a game story. And it was the commercial appeal. And that's what we read, and that's where we got it. And then over time, with the way the industry has changed and the budget cuts came around, then after a while, we didn't have a beat writer. We had, a stringer. And then on the road, our sports information would ghostwrite the story back for the commercial appeal. And then I saw what has happened to every major newspaper in the country, that their staff has been cut dramatically. What I will say is that we have to find ways, because we have lost a dramatic amount of coverage, and it is impacting our game. Mm-hmm. We are losing more young women to volleyball than we ever have. Wow. Ever. And it's even worse because they're all 6'4". I mean, if we were losing them to softball, I'd be okay, but we're losing all the 6'4" kids to volleyball. And so I'm not sure that I know the answer, but I feel the frustration. And I've been many places where it was covered really, really well, and I think it even was here in Memphis in my early days. I know it was in New York. I know it was in Washington with both the Times and the Post. I was talking to a commercial appeal reporter yesterday. I said, "Do you know Kathy Orton?" He goes, "Oh, yeah. She used to do women's basketball." I said, "Yeah, she was our beat writer with the Mystics." So I don't know if I know the answer, but I do know that social media has taken over so much of how all of us get our information and how we get our news stories. But I don't think that as an industry, and again, I'm not telling him how to do his job. I wanted to be a journalist. I didn't have a degree in one, so I can't say that I know all these things. But what I do know, and I've said this many times, even in this city, that if you're going to sell somebody something, they got to get their eyeballs on it 3 times, and maybe 4, and maybe 5. In order for people to follow us or to know one of our stories, it has to be told up to 5 times before people really understand it. And I just don't think we're bombarding our audience enough with our product to be able to do that. And I could say the same. I could say the same about the University of Memphis, and I love the University of Memphis, but I would say that to Tom Bowen sitting right here, because we've had this discussion many times. And so I just think it's that we have to figure out how this new industry that we know, or that we have in terms of news and information, and particularly sports, we have to find a better way to navigate it, and I don't think anybody's figured that out. It's probably not going to be me that figures that out. I'm just going to say that. But we have to have somebody that's very thoughtful about how to make this happen. And I don't think that thought process I don't think that's being done now.
What I would say is, the first part is the reality of the business. So, just to focus on the commercial appeal for a second, I think 15 years ago, they had a newsroom of over 200, yes. 210, 220. Yep. We have, the Daily Memphian, I feel like we have a lot of people. We have a newsroom of about 35 with our partners. So some of it starts there. So, newsrooms are just so much smaller than they used to be. It's unbelievable. In terms of, honestly, in terms of the prioritization, we do disproportionately cover Penny, and less so now the Grizzlies, honestly. And Penny's a huge story, so we've decided to obsess over that, and You know, it's an interesting thing where you're doing, you know, you don't want to be clickbait. I mean, I go into a whole digression on this, but you've got, you know, we are trying, the Daily Memphian is trying to be a sustainable, like, I don't know if everybody knows, we're a nonprofit, so we raise a bunch of money up front, but we don't want to fundraise forever. We want to become sustainable by year 4 or 5 based on sponsorships and events and the paywall money that hopefully you give to us. So we've got this funny balance. I mean, sometimes the best story is a story about U of M women's basketball. It's whatever that story is, and we'll try to do that. Sometimes the most important story is a story about juvenile justice, and we've done a ton of stories about the Juvenile Justice Center lately. I can promise you those were nowhere near the top stories in what was read in terms of driving subscriptions. Penny drove way more subscriptions over the last month than the 4 stories we did on the Juvenile Justice Center. But we're still going to do those Juvenile Justice Center stories because that's a huge issue in Memphis and the country right now. And so it's tough. I mean, I would love to add another 20 people, and if we did that, we would devote a lot more resources to women's sports. I don't know that we would do, some of our least read stuff are game stories. People don't read game stories. It's really interesting. I mean, just because social media and ESPN and other sources, and people just don't read that, you know, in the 4th quarter it came down, they don't read that. They'll read a Jeff Calkins column about a game or a person and kind of the feel of it. Same with Chris Harrington or Don or Jonah. They like that stuff more. And so I don't know that anyone with any amount of money is ever going to get back to covering sports the way we used to cover it. And then the last thing on that, just because, is that if you look at what the Grizzlies did a couple years ago, they launched this Grind City Media and their own kind of media organization because they were up against the same thing. And they said, look, we got to start taking our message directly to people. We have more followers than the CA, local TV, and everybody combined. And so I think the coverage of a lot of things, but sports particularly, has changed a lot. All of that is I'm making excuses for not covering women's sports enough. But I mean, it's tough. So.
I'm not a good one to talk about that. I'm still struggling with that. That is extremely challenging, particularly when you have such an opportunity to drive transformational change. And I feel as if we haven't had as many people focused on what is in the best interest of the entire community. And so I feel that I'm challenged to work hard and get it done, and I want to get it done now. I don't want to get it done tomorrow. I think too many times we have looked at it that way. So I have no good advice to give you on that.
Ditto.
I'm sorry.
I mean, so, you know, the fire service is 24/7, 365,
Yeah,
and while I do keep business hours now, I think Beverly asked me earlier, do you get off weekends? And I just looked at her and kind of smirked because I have events all weekend that I'll be attending. Sometimes I work nights. It is a struggle, and you just have to pick your moments. And the way I do that is I spend times with my dogs, taking them for walks, try to get exercise when I can. And quite honestly, the best balance I get is when I'll take a vacation and get out of the country and tell them I'm only going to check my emails twice a day. And I see Shirley Ford, our chief financial officer here, and I tell them that I'm going to use my city phone, and it's going to, you know, international charges are going to apply. And so they leave me alone.
I would say that my answer is going to be much like theirs in that, you know, I have found that I used to go home at night and I'd have dinner at night and then I'd go back to work until literally 1 or 2 in the morning, and that's just the life of a coach. I think I no longer do overkill. Like I could go to bed at 11 and it's okay. I have to tell myself that's okay. You know, somebody else watched the last 10 minutes of that game. It's okay. You've already seen 6 of them. It's all right. I do think the one thing I say about coaching and obviously about their jobs as well, and many of your jobs, is that I think academia has it right by creating sabbaticals, but most of our jobs do not allow sabbaticals.
I agree.
And I will tell you this, that this is a true story. Last spring, I took a sabbatical because I had to. So what I suggest now is that you plan for, and it might be every 3 or 4 years, but you can't go for 35 or 40 years without taking some time for yourself. Now I'm like this, I leave the country, or I hop on a cruise, or I go to a golf course, or I fly to places where I have family and things of that sort. But I would just say this, I would say plan it. There is not a business in this country that will not accommodate you for health reasons, and the health reasons now are all about exhaustion and exhaustion. That's probably the best word I can say.
Yeah.
And so there is not a community that a business that will not support that. So I would say plan for it and make it every 3 years, because most of us can power through a lot of things, but when exhaustion hits, it hits, and you have no control over it.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it. I